or disillusioned with the profession must resign rather than compromise the ethics and standards of healthcare delivery.
And please, if you are a medical professional and you are tired of the work, probably you have to, you can resign. I'm telling you. Ghana will survive.
We'll hear from Ked Nawani shortly and also delve deeper into this as we engage the GMA. Later in the bulletin, after months of closure over leadership disputes, the whole Zongo Central Mosque is set to reopen this evening as feuding factions sign bond. Details of these and more shortly. We'll bring you the details, but before that, we'll also bring you the new summaries. This is Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. We're live on Facebook, 3FM 927, on YouTube, 3FM 927, Twitter, 3FM 927, and all our other social media platforms. You can join us, send us your views and comments on all these stories we have headlined as well as the others in the package, so you can be a part of the bulletin. Don't forget it's 3FM 927 on all social media platforms. My name is Grace Hamwajiman. Before we bring the details, Christabel says Trevor is here to bring us the news summaries. Christabel, what do you have?
Thank you very much, Grace. We begin with the Medical Laboratory Professional Workers Union. They are saying that its members have resumed duties at the Central Laboratory of the Kolibu Teaching Hospital. The union is also saying the decision follows the appointment of the hospital's Director of Pharmacy, Dr. Charles Ofe-Palm, as acting head of the laboratory, pending a crucial meeting scheduled for Tuesday, May 12. He spoke to the media in Accra, where he said the union hopes to reach a final resolution on the ongoing leadership dispute. Now, Deputy Attorney General Justice Srem Sai has described as completely false claims that the former NAFCO CEO, Hanan Abdul Wahab, was denied access to his lawyers while in Yoko's custody after his rearrest. Mr. Abdul Wahab and his wife were rearrested at the premises of the court complex on May 5th after the Attorney General withdrew charges, including stealing, money laundering, and defrauding by false pretenses. Lawyer for Mr. Abdul Wahab and former Attorney General Godfrey Dami, in an interview with TV3, accused Yoko and the Attorney General of intimidation and torture. He further claimed lawyers of the former NAFCO boss were not allowed access to their clients over 24 hours after his rearrest. And finally, before we go, MG's journalists Grace Hamwajiman and Sarah Apinkro have been honored by the MEC Foundation for their outstanding contributions to the field of journalism, particularly their comprehensive coverage of female health and human rights. Now, while Sarah is making her second appearance on the award scheme, this will be the third time Grace is receiving this award, and that's how we wrap up the news summaries here on 3FM. Grace, a very, very big congratulations to you. We are so proud of you. Keep making MG and 3FM proud.
Thank you so much, Christabel. That's it for the news summary. Let's bring you the details of Hot Edition tonight. Let's begin from that report by the No Bed Syndrome Committee. And this evening, the Ghana Medical Association has raised concern over the publication of names of doctors in the Ministerial Investigative Committee's report on the death of Charles Emisa, saying it risks shifting attention away from deeper systemic failures in Ghana's emergency health care delivery. In a communication to its members dated May 7, 2026, the association acknowledged the report's finding, which highlights significant gaps and long-standing weaknesses in emergency care services across the country. However, the GMA says naming individual health workers who were on duty during the incident has triggered public debate that is now focusing on personal attacks rather than the broader institutional challenges identified in the report. The association says it is taking steps to obtain an official copy of the report to fully review its findings and recommendations before deciding on its next course of action. It insists that while accountability is important, any disciplinary process must be fair, transparent, evidence-based, and follow due process. The GMA has also urged its members to remain calm and avoid public commentary that could prejudice ongoing processes, adding that it will support any member who may face any action arising from the case. Meanwhile, the Health Committee of Parliament is urging medical professionals who feel exhausted or disillusioned with the profession to resign rather than compromise the ethics and standards of healthcare delivery. This follows findings by a committee investigating the death of Charles Emisa, a hit-and-run victim, which concluded that he died as a result of medical neglect and not the injuries he initially sustained. Chairman of the Health Committee and MP for Nabdam, Dr. Mark Nawani, reacted to the development during an engagement with the investigative committee. Let's listen to what he's been saying.
We are saying that it is beyond just the facility. It is the individuals. And please, if you are a medical professional and you are tired of the work, probably you have to, you can resign. I'm telling you, Ghana will survive. You have, if you are ready to work, please, there are ethics. If you can't do something, you call your colleague doctor, your senior doctor. And one funny thing about doctors is that, the senior doctors, is that they are always happy to be called. Once a junior doctor calls a senior doctor, they are ready to run and come and help. It's something that in my 33 years of practice, I realized that whenever you want help from a doctor you call, a colleague doctor calls that person, you run and come and help. This should not have happened. This has nothing to do with no bed syndrome, but that was the name that was given to it. And that was probably the investigation or the referral that was given to the committee. And it has happened at Kaswa, where somebody who has been admitted, he has spent 36 hours there and they are saying no bed. Has he been lying on the floor all that time that there was no bed at the recovery ward? Do you need to do a cesarean section and send the person automatically or compulsorily to a recovery ward?
You've been hearing Dr. Nawani. Let's now bring in Dr. Richard Salome. He is General Secretary of the Ghana Medical Association. Doc, thank you for your time and for speaking to us on the bulletin tonight. Right, we are working the phone to bring in Dr. Richard Salome. He is General Secretary of the Ghana Medical Association. The association has been raising concerns about the findings from the report, especially over the publication of names of doctors in the Ministerial Investigative Committee's report on the death of Charles Emisa. Let's listen to Professor Ajiman Bedu Akosa. He is chairman of the committee. Let's listen to what they have been saying as part of their findings.
We believe that this was not the first time an event like this has happened. Committee reports were done and the reports collected dust. And we want to ensure that this report does not collect dust, but is acted upon.
It was for us a very sad reflection. You are a professional, you take a Hippocratic oath, you say I, and you mention Ajimambedu Akosa, and you swear to do that. That is not the establishment, that is not the hospital, that is not the facility. It is you, as a qualified practitioner, registered by the Medical and Dental Council. And therefore, you breached your duty of care.
Professor Ajiman Bedu Akosa, chairman of that committee investigating circumstances that led to the death of engineer Charles Emisa. Let's also listen to the response of the family after the findings of the report were presented to the health minister.
The investigation was extensive. And I know that the sanctions will be dealt with according to the motherboard, depending on the health workers' place. So I agree with them with what they said. So the timing was very crucial for his life. For him to be saved.
So you've been hearing Matilda Emisa. She is sister of Charles Emisa. We can now speak to Dr. Richard Salome, General Secretary of the Ghana Medical Association. Doc, thank you for making time to join us tonight. We know you have raised concerns about the naming of individual doctors in the committee's report. Does the GMA believe this approach risks undermining accountability, or is it necessary for transparency?
Well, good evening to you and good evening to your listeners. And first, let me share my condolences to my colleague, Matilda Emisa, and for the tough times for the family and all. And we also must commend her and the family also for the angle they have taken to this matter, where the family is coming together to look at all the systemic issues as well as improving emergency care through the foundation they have formed. And they definitely have our support in this regard. To the matter you have raised, the challenge with the report, which we are yet to see the full report. What we have seen is the abridged version that was presented by the committee, to the media yesterday at the Ministry of Health. As an association, we welcome the report. The challenge we have is the fact that of the 14 or so findings and recommendations that have come, you notice that everybody is only talking about the professionals that are supposed to be sanctioned. If you recall, about 5 or so years ago, there was somebody who had to go to about 7 facilities and eventually also died. A committee was commissioned, and the recommendations are almost exactly the same as we are seeing in this report, including the setting up of an emergency fund. 5 years down the line, do we have an emergency fund? Including the call center, including proper coordination, training of ambulance personnel to be able to do certain things on the ambulance so that it's not just a bus which transfers people from one point to the other, but an extension of an emergency room as ambulances are supposed to be until they get to point of care. Why have we not achieved those things? It's because of our fixation on just looking for somebody, the least person in the chain, to blame. And we continuously do this, and we don't see improvements, and we keep coming back to these issues over and over again. The issue is that we do not have any problem, and we will never shield any member who has gone through a due process and has been found to have acted contrary to what the professional standards require. However, putting these people's names out there has also implications, and we must balance the public sentiment to want to punish somebody with also the people who are yet to still go through the due disciplinary processes at the regulatory body. You would note that the committee itself, even though they have made some findings, which people might argue is the prima facie case that they have made, and for which they are referring these people to the regulatory authorities to go through disciplinary procedures, which includes going to the penal committee and then to the disciplinary committee, where they still have processes of appeal. Clearly, there's still a lot of processes yet to be gone through to establish full guilt and then the appropriate sanctions to be applied.
So, Doc,
if we then proceed to put their names out there, for which people are now attacking them personally on their Facebook pages and their private messages being sent to them, threatening them, what are we achieving by this? We've moved focus from all the other recommendations they have made in the documents. For example, they talk about the fact that if the ambulance personnel had applied pressure and were able to administer IV fluids, the person may have lived. They also talked about the fact that the ambulance had moved about and they could not do a simple BP check on the ambulance because a tube that is just connecting to be able to check the BP was not working. And so it is important we put the issues in context. We want somebody to punish, yes, but if we do not focus on the larger issues that are being raised and we want to engage in scapegoatism, we will come back to this discussion again, like we have come back to. This is the 3rd time in the nearest memory that we are doing.
So how then should accountability be handled in cases like this, where both individual actions and institutional weaknesses are in question?
It's a good question. The good thing you mentioned is institutional weaknesses, and these are things mentioned in the report. Facilities are supposed to have mechanisms that monitor and ensure that things like this don't happen. The question is, what facility arrangements existed in Rich, Kolebu, and Co? Who were the leaders accountable for those purposes? Why is it that only the frontline workers, the nurses, and the doctors are being held accountable? The report did not mention clearly what should happen to those facility managers, the heads of departments, and Co. Were there protocols existing? When the place is full, for example, and people have to be managed, how do we handle such situations? And people be trained accordingly. That is why elsewhere you would have what we call facility liability and practitioner liability. And listening to earlier in the day, former registrar of the Ghana Medical and Dental Council, he talked about the fact that the facilities also have to be held accountable. And HEFRA needs to be interested in making sure this happens. And if we don't do that, then as we speak, even if we grant that our colleagues are guilty, totally guilty, there are people still negotiating to pay for fuel for ambulances to move their referred relatives to another location. Even as we speak, ambulances are still moving, calling hospital to hospital. Friends are calling, telling you that they say there's no bed here, there's no bed there. Can we go here? Can we go there? The coordination mechanism is still yet to be done. Even as we speak, many other things that we need to ensure that the bed management system, that we know that at this point there are beds here to manage stroke, or maybe if you have a bleed into your brain, where at the neurosurgical centers you can be rushed so that can be drained from your brain to allow you to live. As we speak, all these things are not being done. So it is okay to punish, but we must do that in the context where we are doing the things right and sorting out the institutional arrangements that will ensure that even if it is the devil who comes within the system, he will be forced to do the right thing at all times.
Doc, so what immediate reforms is the GMA then pushing for to improve triage and emergency care coordination across hospitals?
Well, we want to see the report in detail. We will study it and prepare various solutions. These solutions are not new. We think that in the interim, training should be enhanced in the facilities for both nurses, doctors, all other frontline workers in the service. We think also that resources should be allocated as a matter of urgency. For example, the whole of Accra of over 6 million people, how many emergency beds exist? Kolebu itself has barely 50 beds, and Komfanoche has about 40 beds of emergency for what population. So if we don't expand the capacity, which is way below at about 5 per 1,000 population or so that WHO recommends. So if there are emergencies, mass casualties, where will these people go? That is the problem. And if we don't solve some of these problems and then strengthen the peripheries, ensure the coordination exists, and then when you report to the emergency and you don't have money, there should be that fund that even takes care of you and prevents the delays in the emergency that makes the beds not become available for others to use. We will come back and be discussing this once again.
Doc, so when you go on our Facebook page, there's a question that says that, Grace, can you ask Dr. Salome whether the medical profession is trying to shield its members from scrutiny? Because how does he respond to concerns that the GMA is prioritizing professionals over public accountability? In any case, these frontliners were the first port of call when the ambulances got to their premises. If they had at least checked vitals of Charles Emisa, and then the facility had said that there were no beds, we could have said that these health professionals on duty did their part. Doc, that's a question from our Facebook page for you. How do you respond to this question?
Well, I do not know where GMA is trying to shield anyone. There are many doctors who are sanctioned on a daily basis, on a weekly basis by Medical and Dental Council, and you do not have, but for this, some of you probably do not know, but you don't see Ghana Medical Association coming to shield anyone. In this discussion we have had, I have laid bare clearly that the Ghana Medical Association does not intend and will not prevent any measure that tries to hold health workers accountable for that matter. The issue we are talking about is fairness, equity, and justice in the administration of this. in better managed places, you would have very high-level people resigning just merely because something occurred.
Right.
They are not even in the front line, but they will resign because they hold themselves to fiduciary responsibility, and the frontline workers only act in vicarious responsibility for them.
For them, exactly.
And so when systems are not right, and you just want to hold those in front responsible and leave the authorities that be, that's why I asked the question. In punishing them, does it stop the process where a few weeks ago we had people having to pay for an ambulance before they are moved to another location for which delays occurred and people died? By all means, hold health workers accountable. But let me simply flip this question. Let me ask you, how many times have you heard Ghanaians marching for better health care before? We march for voting, we form alliances, and march and say that, let my vote count. But the right to health, which keeps you alive, to be able to vote in a sane manner. Have you ever heard Ghanaians marching for that before? That should tell you the premium we put on, beyond just this cyclical thing where when it occurs, we all come and shout and profess love for the healthcare industry. We all go back to sleep. We don't pay attention. We don't even support the government by maybe contributing. How many of us have even donated anything to support the emergency? All this talk will happen. It will go quiet. We'll come back to another issue. We must keep an eye and focus on them. The MP you vote for, ask him what he's doing for your healthcare and emergency care, and make sure that these things happen so that we all together build the system that we want and not just trying to scapegoat the health workers. Again, if we lump everybody together with all the things we see on the socials, all health workers are evil, health workers are this, health workers are that. Thousands of people who walk through Kolebu today have gone home, are celebrating. Are all the doctors and nurses and pharmacists and other people there evil? Wouldn't they have died by now? Are we not demoralizing those who are doing their best, sometimes having to take their personal resources to support the care of patients? So by all means, hold accountable. But the generalization, scapegoatism without holding the full chain from the point where the person started, the ambulance service, those delays, at every point the committee found things that were not done right.
Right.
We are still focusing on 1 out of 14. And for the past 24 hours, that's all we have focused on. Not the emergency fund that needs to be set up so that when you and I report to the emergency and we have money in our account but cannot access it, the fund will pay for that.
Yes.
And then when we become conscious, we can then pay or do something. We are not talking about that.
Doc,
so let's refocus the discussion so that we can improve things and not come back here in the next few years talking about the same thing.
This is a conversation that's not ending anytime soon because, like you said, it's been just 24 hours since the committee gave us the report. I'm sure we'll definitely come back to you even as we continue to delve into the findings and the recommendations of the report. Thank you for talking to us. Dr. Richard Salome is General Secretary of the Ghana Medical Association. He says that GMA is not shielding any of its members, and if it comes to the fact that they need to present any of them, they are open to scrutiny and they are open to conversations. Let us bring in Dr. Thomas Anaba. He's a member of the Health Committee of Parliament and MP for Garu in the Upper East Region. Doc, thank you for talking to us. You've been on the line for a while listening to Dr. Richard Salome. What is your preliminary comments, response to his response to the questions you've been putting to him?
Thank you very much for having me, and good evening to your cherished viewers. I think I was happy when you said that at least they are not going to shield any of their colleagues who have misbehaved or done something wrong. But he also called for the entire Ghana and the public to help to ensure that the needed infrastructure, the needed resources to run a very conducive emergency services in Ghana need to be tackled by everybody, and that everybody needs to come on board for us to establish a system that all of us will be happy with. Those are my initial comments. I think very good points that I think that it is worth supporting and pushing for, because that has always been the case, that infrastructure is not adequate, number of doctors are not adequate, resources to use at the emergencies are not adequate. And all this is because management, governance in the hospitals and do not put much importance, perhaps, to all this, either due to financial reasons or lack of prioritization for such facilities.
Doc, let me just continue on that tangent where you left. So to what extent or at what point or how much responsibility should government bear also in all of these? Because the GMA makes us understand that, well, it is not solely their fault because there are also systemic challenges because of some other things government or some other measures government has not put in place. How much responsibility should government also bear in this?
You see, he made certain pronouncement that I understand his point of view, but I also think that our colleagues, unfortunately, have some liabilities. We know we have the facility liability and we have the professional liability. The professional liability is what you, the doctor, fail to do if you had all the resources at your disposal and you fail to do it. That is a professional liability. But he is talking from the point of view that as if there was nothing in the hospital.
Your call has been put on hold. Please wait.
As a result, they couldn't perform their duties. But from the investigation and from the report, I, as an emergency physician, did not see it like that. And I think the committee that sat on the matter did not see it like that.
Right.
What we call triage. Triage is a basic thing done without a tool. Perhaps the best you need is a stethoscope. To see the patient coming in, how he's coming in, whether he's bleeding, he's not bleeding, whether he's conscious or he's not conscious, whether he's communicating with you or not, and give him a categorization to decide whether you should treat immediately or defer treatment. You don't need even a hospital to do it. Even if you get an accident scene, you can triage the patient. And this is where I have problem with my young colleagues. All the places she went, they sent the patient to, none of them triage the patient. He made mention of the ambulance not having the right BP apparatus to check the BP. If the doctors had triaged, they would have got to know that even the ambulance BP cuff could not reach the patient when they put him on the ambulance. So they would have done something faster to prevent the gentleman's death. So triaging was something that they could have used to detect the lapse in the ambulance. But whatever it may be, the ambulance people were able to take their first vital signs, put the patient in the ambulance, even alerted the doctors or the nurses that this patient may not get to the next hospital if you don't attend to him. Meaning that they had seen, they have observed that he was deteriorating. The level of consciousness was going away, was disappearing. He was no more active like he was before. So if they prompt you in this way, you have to triage and say, okay, bring him out with the stretcher, let's attend to him. So to me, in this case, it was not an issue of resources in the hospital, because you don't need those resources. You don't need whatever to triage a patient. You only need to see the patient, talk to him, examine his heart rate and his BP, and you can understand where he is. If the BP machine in the ambulance was broken and they have triaged, they would have asked for a mobile BP machine to check the patient's BP and know that the man was getting into shock.
So, Doc, it means
I want to differ from Dr. Solomon.
All right.
Yes, in as much as we want to at least make sure our colleagues are not penalized for what they have not done wrong, we must accept that the mere fact that they omitted, they didn't perform a triage on them, was to me a non-starter.
Okay. Doc, let us escalate this conversation. Professor Ajiman, Bedru Akosa has warned against allowing this report to gather dust just like previous investigative reports. What concrete steps will Parliament take to ensure the recommendations are implemented, especially also because you are a member of the Parliament's Health Committee?
In fact, we received the report with our chairman, and then the committee would sit down and look at what pertains to Parliament. If there's any recommendation that Parliament can act on, would support in that regard. Others that are meant for the administration of the hospital, management of the hospital to act on, will also see when we do our oversight responsibility visit, we will ask them whether they have done it or not, or ensure that they do them. The recommendations they've given to the colleges, the councils, and the management to act on the very doctors and nurses that were involved in it. Definitely, we would like to know the end results, whether they were implemented, what was the final outcome of it. So I would say I would not like to say much here about it because it is at the level of a committee. I'm not the only person.
Right.
We may have to meet to look at the aspects of the recommendations that Parliament needs to come in. Definitely, if it is about the resources there, definitely we'll look at how budgets can be modified or budgets can be augmented to ensure that we incorporate all those resources into the budget to provide the needed funding for them to procure them. After all, that is the work of Parliament. Prioritize funding, allocations of funding for most important things in the country for all of us to be protected. That one will do it.
All right. Doc, and when you met the committee earlier today, your chairman made a statement to suggest that if people are exhausted or disillusioned about the profession, they should resign and make space for others who are ready to work. When you go on social media, people think that was quite a harsh comment. You don't think so?
You see, you may consider it to be harsh because your brother is alive. But the one who lost his relative, the one whose relative is currently suffering as a result of some of these, would see it differently. So, in as much as I respect my colleagues and I appreciate the effort many doctors are doing in this country, we should not condone malpractice. This, to me, if you take the Ministry of Health policy guidelines for accident and emergency and read it, it is stated how you should attend to a patient at the emergency.
Right.
If you are tired, let the hospital come and replace you. To me, that is a good statement. It is calling on doctors to put up their best. It's also telling doctors that, look, if you think the condition in the hospital is not good to manage cases, put it up.
Right.
Go to the management. And insist that you need this to ensure that you work well, or else I won't be liable. And one important thing I would like to add is that we should have an escalation policy at the emergencies. What does that mean? That when the emergency is full, who is responsible to secure a bed in the hospital for the next patient? If it is the medical director, if it is the matron in charge, if it is the hospital CEO, so that when the emergency is full, the one in charge of the emergency should call somebody to say, look, beds are full, we need to create conditions for the next bed, for the next victim.
Right.
Those policies must be established in the hospitals to ensure that at least at every given time, there must be a bed in the hospital to receive somebody. When it comes to mass casualty, it's a different case altogether. You can even treat them on the verandas.
But for these one-offs, we should be able to accommodate them when they come in.
Yes.
Okay.
So any time at all the emergency is full, they must escalate the need for a bed to the next authority who can secure a bed. Go to any ward, see whether there is an empty bed somewhere. You move a patient who is stable, whether he likes it or not, he goes.
Okay,
Doc, an empty bed.
Thank you for talking to us. Dr. Thomas Anaba is a member of the Health Committee of Parliament and MP for Garo in the Upper East region. This is Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. We'll take this breather and come back and tell you why the whole Zongo Central Mosque is about to reopen after a month of closure. Don't go away. has abruptly aborted plans to reopen the whole central mosque. RegSec, led by the Volta Regional Minister James Gunu, visited the whole Zongo this afternoon with the intent to reopen the mosque following a bond signed by leaders of the feuding groups. The move was, however, aborted when the team's engagement with the Zongo community took a dramatic turn. Our correspondent Faisal Abdul Idrisu is joining us on the phone. He was part of this. Faisal, thank you for talking to us. Can you run us through this latest development in the Zongo community and the details on why the RegSec has aborted the move to reopen the mosque?
Yeah, so in January this year, the Regional Security Council ordered the closure of the whole central mosque following a shooting incident that stemmed out of the ongoing feud between one of the factions led by Alhaji Muniru Ali and the other led by Alhaji Hamidu Anas, both of whom are laying claim to the position of the Volta Regional Chief Imam. Now, in November last year, the National Chief Imam was in hope to install Alhaji Muniru as the Volta Regional Chief Imam, but following that installation, tensions still escalated in the Zongo. And somewhere in December, when worshippers were in the mosque on Friday, some unknown persons entered the mosque and started shooting at them. At the time, we were told 11 persons sustained gunshot injuries, and investigations had opened into the matter. Between that period and now, the state filed an application in court demanding that the two leaders sign a bond of good behavior, and in default, they would have to serve a jail term in hard labor. Following that signing of the bond, the Volta Regional Security Council is telling us that yesterday, among several other consultations, they met the two factions and asked them to execute the bond, which would further lead to the reopening of the mosque. This afternoon, the Volta Regional Minister announced that they were going to engage the larger Zongo community to reopen after which they will proceed to reopen the mosque. We went there, they met the two factions, except that the leaders who actually signed this bond yesterday, that is Alhaji Muniru Ali and Alhaji Hamidu Anas, both of them were not present in this meeting, but their supporters were there. The regional minister briefed them on the bond signing, briefed them on the decision to reopen the mosque today. But things took a dramatic turn when the minister made a donation of 10,000 Ghana cedis to support the medical expenses incurred by the victims. The victims rejected the money, indicating that all they seek is justice. And within that period, the back and forth, things escalated, leading to the decision by the RegSec to abort the plan to reopen the mosque. One of the reasons why RegSec says they were not going to reopen the mosque today is also the fact that the two leaders who signed the bond of good behavior and also to the effect to reopen the mosque were not present. And so RegSec took the decision not to reopen the mosque, aborted it, and abandoned the Zongo community. What they are saying also is that they would go back to the scenes, behind the scenes, to engage the feuding practice again, particularly the leaders, and if there is any form of agreement to the effect of reopening the mosque, they will tend to do so. The Volta Regional Minister who has been speaking to us on this very development. Let's take a listen to exactly what to the media after that engagement in Zongo today.
Right, we'll bring our listeners that audio subsequently. But Faisal, so what is the way forward in all of these? How does this closure affect worship, Islamic worship in the region or in the community?
Well, the minister indicated that the decision to reopen the mosque also stemmed up from the fact that there were appeals from the Zongo community that now that it is raining, they are struggling for a space to worship and undertake daily prayers. What it means is that situation persists. They will not be able to enter the mosque. The other issue is the substantive issue. The minister indicated earlier that the decision or the pronouncement by the National Chief Imam still stands because as a regional security council, they do not have the locals to determine who is the Volta Regional Chief Imam. And so those who still have issues with that declaration by the National Chief Imam can continue to engage the office of the National Chief Imam and also the cost to either overturn or otherwise continue with whatever the status quo is. What it means now is that, yes, the mosque will not be reopened. The issue as to who is the Volta Regional Chief Imam remains, as far as the declaration the National Chief Imam made, is the final decision. Anyone who has any problem with it can proceed to the court or continue to engage the office of the National Chief Imam.
Right, Faisal, thank you for bringing us that succinct report. Faisal Abdul Idris, who is a man in the Volta region, updating us on that aborted move by the Regional Security Council to open the whole mosque. The council says that after some security consultation, it's not likely for them to open the mosque now. We'll stay on this and bring you more on it on our subsequent bulletins. But let's go to the Western region, because Chairman of Parliament's Road and Transport Committee is demanding answers from Amandi Construction after an on-site inspection exposed an abandoned 22-kilometer rail line, even as the same contractor secures new deals. Isaac Egbeta says he is not impressed and has ordered the consultant to urgently submit a full report on cost progress and when the contractor will finally vacate the state. Here is Irama Smith's report. Well, we apologize on that. We'll also bring you a lot more on this. But this is Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Time for a breather. We're back shortly. 3.7. Let's bring you that report on the Chairman of Parliament's Road and Transport Committee demanding answers from Amandi Construction after an on-site inspection exposed an abandoned 22-kilometer rail line, even as the same contractor secures new deals. Here's Rama Smith's report.
On day one of a two-day working visit to assess ongoing projects across the Western region, the Roads and Transport Committee inspected the 23-kilometer Takrady-Agonam-Kwanta dualization and the Sekondi Takrady inner roads, after which the leadership expressed satisfaction.
So we can see that if all these projects are completed and come to reality, Sekondi Takrady will be one of the wonderful cities in this country.
Day two shifted focus to rail. The committee visited the Takrady-Kojokrom line, where passenger service was reactivated just 2 weeks ago. But operators indicated patronage was low, with passengers complaining about the fare hike. The committee urged them to review it. It then moved to the 22-kilometer Kojokrom-Mansu rail line, and that's where concern turned to outrage. Awarded in 2018 and expected to be completed in 2022, the project remains incomplete. The contractor claims 93% work is done, yet the site has been abandoned despite government paying over 70% of the contract sum.
They should have been able to finish the 7% for the Kojokrom to Mansu. That is critical. And the other one is that we are disappointed that they have vacated site. And the extent of deterioration is also something that I've asked them to bring reports on that one going forward.
For the committee, the pattern is clear. A stalled project, millions paid, and new contracts awarded. Now they want to know the actual cost, the percentage of work completed, and the outstanding government payments.
We don't doubt the capacity of Amandi, But what is going on, I'm tempted to think that probably they're doing it deliberately, just to keep government and probably to get more projects. That's why they start with a project, they don't finish, then they get another project, they don't finish, they get another one. So maybe there's intentional something in it.
Irama Smith, Western Region.
Irama Smith reports there from the Western region. And let's do other stories now. Speaker of Parliament Alban Bagbin has made a passionate call for a national transformation in attitude and work ethic at the launch of the Productivity Week in Accra. Speaker Bagbin stressed that without a change in mindset among political leaders and workers alike, the country may struggle to achieve sustainable economic growth and improve living standards.
For years, the issue of productivity has remained a major concern for successive governments in Ghana. According to the recent figures from the Statistical Service, Ghana's productivity recorded a modest improvement of 3.6% in December 2024. Despite the progress, many Ghanaians still express deep frustration over inefficiency and low output, especially within the sections of the public service. It was against this backdrop that Speaker of Parliament Alban Bagbin delivered a strong and emotional message during the launch of the Management and Productivity Institute Week in Accra.
One of the mindsets we have in this country is that we in the leadership, we are not allowed to be on time. They say that's no protocol. And so whether you are ready or not, you have to wait until they say everybody is seated and the place is ready. Then they give you the signal to come. That mindset, that protocol must change.
Deputy Chief of Staff in charge of administration, Nanoye Bampoado, underscored the importance of discipline and patriotism in rebuilding the economy. Minister for Labour, Jobs and Employment, Dr. Rashid Perpo, described productivity as the engine of economic recovery and national prosperity. Director General of the National Development Planning Commission, DPC, Dr. Nimoy Thompson, highlighted the direct link between productivity and improved wages in the public sector.
One reason why salaries are low in Ghana and people keep leaving for quote-unquote greener pastures is that our work is low. And it might have been an interesting drama, but if you've been to some Ghanaian offices, I won't mention particular ones, but you are likely to find about 10, 12 people in the room. And out of that number, only 2 are actually working.
That was Daniel Opoku's report there. Let's go to the quarters of the NDC because they have also been defending some losses or the issues coming out from the activities of the central bank in their Setting the Facts Straight presser. Let's listen to them in this report.
Introducing the National Democratic Congress NDC's position on the Bank of Ghana losses during the relaunch of Setting the Record Straight, Deputy National Communication Officer Godwin Akogan said the outcome achieved justified the expenditure.
Having failed to convince Ghanaians on policy and performance, the NPP has returned to propaganda, shifting from one false narrative to another.
The NDC also turned its attention to the opposition New Patriotic Party, NPP, accusing the party of abandoning policy debate in favor of propaganda and misinformation.
The Bank of Ghana's 15 billion cedis commitment, carried out under its core mandate to stabilize the economy, should be viewed as a strategic investment rather than a loss. It has produced tangible results.
Despite the criticism, the ruling party says it remains open to accountability and public scrutiny.
Let this serve as both a notice and a warning. The NDC is not afraid of criticisms. In fact, we welcome constructive scrutiny, but we will not tolerate deliberate falsehoods, character assassination, and coordinated propaganda. Every lie will be confronted with facts. Every distortion will be corrected with evidence. We are committed to ensure that the Ghanaian voter is informed, not misled.
The National Democratic Congress maintains that it will continue to defend policy it believes are in the national interest while responding to criticism it considers misleading or politically motivated.
Frederick Kunzo Tianis reports there. Time now for us to do sports. The sports team is standing by to bring us the latest.
Hello, good evening and welcome to the sports segment here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. My name is Andrew Sefa Bamfo. Now, ahead of the African Athletics Championships, team captain of Ghana's athletics team, that is Joseph Polamwa, has expressed confidence in the team's ability despite the mountain pressure. The event is scheduled to take start on May 12 at the University of Ghana Stadium.
Honestly, I can't say much, but the little I know is, to build a team needs time.
It's always nice to compete in front of the home crowd and the home crowd. The last time you all saw what happened, and we really like the support. We are very prepared, train hard, and we want to come out here and make sure we put smiles on Ghanaians' faces again. That's what we love to do, so we just continue. I'll say there's pressure, but we can only use it to motivate ourselves. If you let pressure break you, then you're in trouble. So we go out there and try to use the pressure and everything and try to come out with some medals.
And so that was Ghana's athletics team captain Joseph Polamwa speaking to 3 Sports ahead of the African Athletics Championship, which is scheduled to start at the University of Ghana Stadium from May 12. Now, away from athletics to football and specifically to the Black Stars camp, where former Black Stars defender Daniel Paris says it will be very difficult for the Black Stars to make it out of the group stage at the World Cup. He made this assessment while speaking exclusively to 3 Sports.
To be frank, I think we will suffer a little bit. That's the truth. Sometimes the truth needs to be spoken, I love these boys, but I think we've not gotten a team yet. Okay. We have the players. We have the talent, but we've not gotten a team yet. I think that's the problem. I think they can, if we are able to even get out from the group stage, I think Ghanaians should be happy. Because I think this is the time that we have to build the team around these boys, because they are good players. I'm not going to take that away from them. They have the talent to really, go big, but also I think they should sustain them for a while. Sometimes the changes is also too much. It's affecting the team. Right. You understand? Yeah. So when you change the players so much, this one comes today, tomorrow another one is in there, tomorrow, sometimes we should just focus. If the player is doing good in his club and is playing for the Black Stars, we keep him.
So you heard former Black Stars defender Daniel Paris speaking there. Let's turn our attention to women's football, where Ghana's under-20 women's team are vying to make the under-20 women's World Cup for an 8th successive time. The team lead Uganda 2-1 from the first leg in Accra, placing them in a good position to qualify. Now, ahead of the second leg, Black Princesses head coach Charles Sampson is confident in his team's ability to secure qualification to the next round of the competition.
The message is they should still believe in us, they should keep us in prayers, and then we'll go and do our best, ultimate best, to make the whole nation proud and ourselves proud too. I'm expecting us to get our ticket to Poland in Uganda, and when we come to the airport, I'm expecting an euphoria here because the girls deserve that.
And so that was Black Princesses head coach Charles Sampson speaking ahead of Ghana's under-20 game against Uganda this weekend. Now, before we go, let's bring you World Cup in a minute as the World Cup inches ever closer.
A new nation, a new dream, a first step onto football's biggest stage. For the first time ever, Curacao have qualified for the FIFA World Cup, a historic moment for the Caribbean island nation. From a small island with a big football culture, Curacao now takes its place among the world's elite in 2026. Built on talent from across Europe and the Caribbean, this team blends experience, flair, and fearless ambition. For the fans, it's more than football. It's pride, identity, and history in the making. They may be debutants, but they are not just here to participate. They are here to compete. The world is watching. Can Curaçao's Blue Wave make a splash in 2026?
So that was your daily bit of World Cup in a minute, with just 35 days ahead of the Mundial, bringing an end to the sports segment here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7 with me, Andrew Sefar Bamfo, and also bringing an end to the new segment here on 3FM 92.7. For more updates in the world of news, business, and sports, join us same time tomorrow.